Hi everyone, my name is Erin Halliday, and today I'll be presenting my literature review on ostracism, which was titled Connecting the Dots, The Effects of Social Ostracism on Suicide Ideation. For my literature review, I wanted to focus specifically on suicide and suicide ideation. My thesis was which of the fundamental needs that are threatened through the experience of ostracism have the most significant effect on suicide ideation. So in the beginning of the semester, we learned a lot from Williams' research and the temporal need threat scale on the results of ostracism and how ostracism can sometimes lead to aggression. When I think of aggression, I usually think of outward aggression. My first thought actually was being curious of how ostracism could lead to aggression in the form of, say, school shootings. Um, After that, I decided that I would like to focus on the more inward types of aggression, self-harm, suicide, suicide ideation. In the beginning of my research, I didn't have a ton of luck finding information on suicide and ostracism. In my very first search, I only got 9 results. But thanks to the library search tools that we learned, I was able to get enough resources. My favorite resource that I used was a compilation of 11 studies that were all done by the same researchers. So they started off just looking at the relationship between ostracism and suicide ideation. They manipulated ostracism either by playing cyberball. They sometimes had people relive a past experience of ostracism. And in some of the studies, they would have somebody imagine a scenario in which their character was ostracized. And then, of course, they would rate their suicidal tendencies. My complaint about this study was that they asked very forward questions about the participants' likelihood to commit suicide. I thought that there's a lot of judgment around the idea of suicide, and I felt like probably not as many participants would be willing to admit that they would even have suicidal thoughts after one of these experiences. Despite my concerns, the researchers did find a significant relationship between ostracism and suicidal ideation. They found a mediating effect of depression. So they started in one of the sets of studies, they started having the participants rate their level of depression. And they did find that the participants who rated themselves more depressed also were more likely to choose options that involved suicide in the end after ostracism. And they also found by using the MLQ or meaning in life questionnaire that thwarted meaning of life was the fundamental need that seemed to diminish the most in participants that chose the suicidal options after experiencing ostracism. So one of the most interesting pieces of information that I got to learn about was my research on ostracism and affective disorders was that the relationship between the ostracism and depression specifically was bidirectional. So when somebody is ostracized, they are more likely to feel or experience depression, but vice versa is also true. People who are depressed are also more likely to be ostracized. And the researchers thought that maybe that was because they had maladaptive or dysfunctional coping skills or social skills. But regardless, the relationship between ostracism and depression was bidirectional. Another study that I found really interesting was one that was about ostracism and unethical behavior. So researchers had participants experience ostracism. They then measured the electrical conductivity of their skin. Um, to show that there was a physiological response to the ostracism. What they found was that when the individual who experienced ostracism was more physiologically aroused, they were more likely to engage in unethical behaviors. This study was done on students at a university, and so what they used to judge unethical behaviors was cheating on a test. So they were ostracized, they then had to complete a test, and the more the ostracism affected them, the more likely they were to cheat on the test. So the conclusions from my research was that there was a really clear connection between ostracism and suicide ideation. I do think that more research definitely needs to be done on both these outward and inward displays of aggression following ostracism. I would also be really interested to see a study where each of the fundamental needs that's described by Williams, that each one of those is tested specifically to see exactly which one was affected the most after ostracism, because I think that understanding these mediating effects on suicide ideation would be really helpful. And that is it. Thank you so much for watching. It has been a joy working with you all this semester, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.